And welcome back to the first episode of 2024 of Pre-Cana with the Pope. We are your hosts, Renzo and Monica Ortega. And Monica's got a great red face at the moment. She just blew her nose, and her face changes like the seasons. Seasons in New England, you never know what you're going to get. I'm sorry. I love it. I love your face.
Thank you.
You always get good things. I always get good things to look at.
What are you saying?
I like your face.
Thank you. Even when it's red.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's actually why.
Oh. Okay.
Yes. I'm tired of brown when I look in the mirror.
Brown and browner. I cannot believe that it's 2024. I mean, technically today when we're recording, it's not yet, but
they don't have to know that.
When this is released, it's 2024. When did that happen? Like, Christmas snuck up on us.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways.
It's because it was a short Advent.
That's true.
Yes.
But yeah,
logic.
I'm excited for like what is to come this year. With
you know what? I'd like to come this year. I'd like us to put this on. Wait, with the mic. I'd like to put this on YouTube.
This episode.
Mm-hmm. This in our faces, looking like this. Why? We should.
But
people want to see the real us. Why? Because you don't have makeup on. Neither do I.
Makeup.
I look like this all the time. I have to deal with this all the time. The same brown color.
I just showered. My hair is crazy.
Looks great.
Yeah.
You know what'll be nice is that since we're reacting to a video, we'll be like up in the top corner.
Oh, and the video will be like the main thing.
Yeah, though. You'll see. You don't even know what we're reacting to. Responding. No, reacting-ish.
What's the right
reflecting
term?
We're reflecting because we're not just like giving our like, oh my goodness, right?
Yeah, we're gonna react and then reflect, and we'll share our response.
Yeah. Oh, and one more thing. While you guys are listening to this, we're actually or watching this maybe because you're on YouTube. We're gonna try to do YouTube. We're gonna try to make it a thing.
You did not tell me this ahead of time.
Nope, I didn't tell you a lot of things because you wouldn't do it.
That's true.
Look at me. I'm like half shaven. Look at all this.
Look at all that. That's as good as it gets. Listen, you're making fun of my face for being red. There it is.
While you're listening to this, we will be at Seek in St. Louis with all the famous Catholics.
Yep.
And no one will know who we are. No one. No. But if you're there, if you're listening to this and you can find us, you wouldn't even know where to find us. We're not going to tell you where we are. If you can find us, we will take a picture.
Because we do not have a To Become Family or Pre-Cana with the Pope booth. So don't even try to find us that way. We're just, it's like, where's Waldo? You won't even know where we are.
If you can find us, though, we need to have a prize. No, let's not, because I'm not going to pack it. Totally going to forget.
Too many things. We're also bringing the kids. So if you want to meet the kids,
they're not going to be there.
I can't promise that they'll be next to us.
No,
but
stop. No, someone's going to stalk us
somewhere
and come to St. Louis.
Yeah. Yikes. But yeah, I'm excited.
Jiu-jitsu.
Bluebell.
No, so today we're going to reflect on, I hope this turns out well. So I think a couple weeks ago, maybe a month ago, Trent Horn and Lila Rose went on the Whatever podcast. Have you heard of the Whatever podcast?
Me?
They can't respond to me.
I have heard of it, and I have watched reels and short clips of videos.
That's what reels are. It's good. Good definition.
No, also on YouTube. Like, I've watched shorts.
Oh.
I was saying what I was saying. But I think I've shared this before. I am a big podcast phony. I host a podcast, but I don't listen to them. I mean, if someone sends me something and they're like, listen to this, it's really good. And I'll be like, what minute should I start listening to it to get to the good part? I'll listen to them.
Skip the banter we just did.
Yeah, I don't like banter. Anyway, so
that's how people get to know you.
I've heard.
So you've heard of a Whatever podcast.
Yes.
So basically they went on, Matt Fradd, Trent Horn, and Lila Rose, I think, and Michael Knowles too. Like those four have addressed like different things within the podcast. It's kind of becoming, it's more on Catholic and Christians' radar. Because they are, so originally the podcast started as a way of like people who are red pill influencers. So like male influencers in the red pill community, basically debating OnlyFans models on different topics of masculinity and pornography, promiscuity, prostitution, all of those topics coming up over and over. And
who's an example of a red pill influencer for those who didn't know that that was a term but have heard of these guys?
Well, trying not to get down a rabbit hole. So like, I think most popular people would be like, oh, Andrew Tate, even though he doesn't consider himself part of the red pill community anymore, there's a whole like big backstory to all that most people don't need to know about.
Okay. But he's an example.
He's an example of one of the people. I don't think he's ever been on that one, but he's been on other ones. Like the Fresh and Fit podcast is another one that's kind of in that space. But basically they're making the red pill community is making a big, headway with male content. Like men are consuming their content a lot because they're saying a lot of things that are countercultural. A lot of culture has said at the moment that like men are bad, masculinity is bad. So the red pill community is kind of a counter to that, saying like, no, instead of beating down men, it's kind of trying to empower men to like, no, you can do things, you could do hard things, all that. But then they also take it to a degree that's way too far in what most Christians or Catholics would say, because
of like the sexual side of it.
Yeah, because like some of it, and I guess it depends also like Tomasi's the guy's last name, I forgot his Rollo Tomasi is like one of the founders of it, saying that like men can have multiple relationships and that they shouldn't try to get married, they should try to make a lot of money, they shouldn't settle down until they're in their 30s or 40s, and they should be with younger women. So like there's a lot of things that end up being said that are just like, oh, that's a little too much. Like at one point he was saying like men should be having vasectomies when they're 20s so that they don't ever end up having a child, so that they can make as much money as possible and have as much power and all that. So like it gets too far.
Sounds like feminism, but the man version.
Right. Well, let's
turn off the thing that actually makes you a man.
That's that's literally it. Like it's a response to where the culture is. It's a way overcorrection. So what's been nice to see is that people like Trent Horn and Lila Rose have gone on these podcasts. Lila Rose is on a lot. Right. And Lila Rose has a lot of, she's got a lot of nice clips.
Yeah.
Where she's not just debating the OnlyFans models, but is also debating some of the red pill influencers. I forgot the guy that she specifically debated. It's like that really big guy. And so it's just been interesting to see. So this most recent debate was Lila and Trent versus somebody named Destiny, and then the woman's name is Jasmine Jafar, she's an OnlyFans model, and Destiny is like a big advocate of open relationships and all that red pill stuff. So they debate them on pornography, Lila and Trent do, and I thought they did a really good job. I did not finish the whole thing because it's like 3 hours long. But I'm in the middle of it. But I thought part of it that they started debating was in terms of like marriages and relationships. One of the arguments that Lila and Trent were saying is that pornography is detrimental to relationships and it can cause divorce. And then, the people that were pro porn, so the guy's name is Destiny, and then Jasmine is the other woman on the other side who she does OnlyFans. They were arguing that porn is not bad for relationships, that it depends on the relationship. And I thought that'd be interesting to discuss and kind of reflect on, because it's not uncommon for Catholic or Christian spouses, particularly wives, to admit, usually on a Facebook forum, that their spouse still looks at porn and they don't know what to do about it. Some of their husbands defend it and say that it's okay. It's not like I'm cheating on you. Other husbands have come out and like they'll be secretive about it. And then there's wives that are very understanding of like the husbands that are addicted and be like, I know he's trying to stop, but he's still sneaking around. What do I do? How do I support him? So it's just, I think, and I don't think we've addressed like pornography, I think on our podcast as like how to talk to your kids about it, but I don't think we've ever addressed it like within marriage. And I think, I think it's more common than we might want to believe it is.
Yeah.
Particularly like if, actually no, I would even say if both spouses are faithful, like it would be very ignorant of us to be like, oh yeah, that means the guy doesn't struggle at all. Like, no, that's assuming a lot. So
I also think too, I don't know, I haven't watched this clip, but also female masturbation and pornography is way more prevalent than we would also like to think.
I don't have data. I don't have actually data in the moment, but I do know that people that I've spoken to about this have said that the data is showing that Generation Z is probably going to be the first generation where women and men are equal to their consumption of pornography, or if not, women are going to be consuming more than men.
Yeah.
Because I guess the trend is starting that way, because like they could do a TikTok and
yeah. So I don't think
Snapchat.
we can remove that from the conversation either.
No, but I think, assuming right now most of the people that are married that are listening are millennials, I think it's worth, like, you're right to say that, like, it's not just the men that struggle, but it still skews that that's the majority of people who are struggling. Right.
Fair.
So,
question before we switch screens.
Yep.
Where are my eyes supposed to be when we're recording?
I'm going to look at myself, and if people don't like it, listen, we are just going to be.
If I look at you while you're talking, but you're on the screen, is that like does it look like I'm just staring out into space?
Listen,
what does this look like?
This is who we are, and we're just putting this out there.
Okay.
And I'm not going to edit anything. Look how much I'm moving the camera. I don't care. We're just trying. We have to be, like Pat Flynn says, we have to be disaster before we can be masters. So we'll be disasters here. Like remember our very first episode of Pre-Canon with the Pope?
No.
Oh, you haven't re-listened to them.
No.
We were awful. Like if you listen to our very first episode, like it's so poorly edited, and it's just, we're very jumbling through. So like this is going to be the same thing.
Here it is, 2024. You're welcome.
Yeah. You're welcome. So I'm going to share this screen now, and then we're going to watch the first clip. I don't want to share it this way. This way? Does that look better? Yeah. Wait, I have to go back to the screen. I'm going to leave all this up. Ready? Okay, so this is Lila's going to start talking about porn and the conflict within relationships.
Minors is increasing. So there's that world of that, people involved, and that usually those that have, you can use the word addiction or compulsion around pornography. There's a need for it to be increasingly intense or violent or disordered in the sexual acts that are being portrayed, for them to find it fulfilling. And so they have to continue on this like porn use journey that they're on. And it leads to many other victims left in the wake of it, like children. But another side of it too.
Sorry, so just to wrap up her thought here, and we've heard this before because we've been to a lot of different Steubenville conference talks, but even other talks on like pornography. I believe what she's wrapping up here is the thought that when people consume porn, they inevitably will need more intense videos or images to continue to be aroused by pornography over time. Mm-hmm. So same as any other addiction, like to a drug, like they need more, they need to consume more. And what ends up happening is that most people will go to really, really, what's a good way to say it? That's not like, I don't know. Like they'll go to very intense versions of porn that are, that
it's not like vanilla sex. It's like, yeah.
Do we have to put I
don't know. Sorry.
Don't know. Can we say that word? I don't know.
Whoops.
What does Apple want? No, but so like they end up, and then she talks about children like that. All those things end up coming into play because at some point, like what people have been watching is no longer. That's the dog.
Real life.
Well, so yeah, some people just end up not being turned on by that anymore, so they find more intense images, videos, whatever.
And I don't know if they go into this too, but also, so like, yes, the children being involved in pornography and sex trafficking, and the, like, maybe the violence that is included, or the, like, how explicit it gets and how intense it gets. But also I feel like, and I don't know if this is what she's talking about, but children are victims to pornography because of how young children are getting access to pornography as well. So like these addictions are starting at such a young age because it's just everywhere. It's on social media. Kids have devices, and because so many adults have become more numb to it because they've been involved in pornography, like they've been using it, or it's part of the culture, that like children very young are getting access to pornography. So I think that they are also victims to this because of
sure, she could have been that could have been part of it too. I don't remember.
Even if it's not, I feel like it's worth mentioning.
Yep. And so this is, and I think, again, I don't remember the part of the argument, but it was the idea that this is addictive and like it's detrimental to a person because even this cycle of having to get to worse things or more intense things, like that's not healthy.
Two is the relational side for people that are trying to make families, because I think civilization is built on families. Families is where what we're born into. It's where we find our greatest meaning and worth, how we're formed as kids, how we become good citizens one day, and how we discover love for the first time. And today, around 20% of couples report that they experience conflict because of porn use of one of the partners. Like, this is a significant thing afflicting a lot of relationships. And one of the top rated things in divorce settlements are the porn use of one of the partners. So it's really damaging. And I think the life experience of many people, I'm sure, are listening into this podcast right now, they know people, everyone knows someone who's been hurt by pornography. So it's really pernicious.
I don't think the pleasure of orgasm balances out the cons.
So the data, I'm sure.
So just to stop there, because that was Lila's point, and now I want your reflection more, because like I've heard this before, on what they say.
Okay.
On what Jasmine and Destiny, like how they respond.
And there's a mannequin.
That's yes.
Okay. Just anyone that's watching this for the first time with me.
That's part of
you
the
guys,
whatever.
when you're looking at porn, it's very mixed. Big medical consensus is that like this addiction and all that's not a thing. When it comes to couples, it seems like when the couples are on the same page, that it doesn't lead to negative impacts. It leads to that when there's one couple.
What do you mean by on the same page?
Like when both, like if like in a couple, if they don't care if the other person watches porn, which is a lot of couples, then it doesn't seem to have these kind of negative.
Do you think that's the majority?
I think it's a lot of people.
Do you think the majority of...
So that's their first argument. I want to know what you think about that.
I'm interested. I'd be interested for like a better explanation of that it doesn't affect their relationship. Of like they feel like, are they satisfied with their sex life? Are they satisfied with their like emotional relationship and like all those things? Like, what is it that they are okay with, or are they just okay with like, I'm not going to cause a conflict with this because I want to avoid conflict?
Well, that's one of the big problems with having these like survey studies, because, and I don't remember this off the top of my head of like what more effective ways of getting information are for these kind of things. But like if you survey people, like, me at least, like it depends on like what mood I'm in, how I'm going to answer. So like I know that most of these studies, I don't remember them again. I looked at them and then I forgot. But they're done by survey. So like you survey couples and you ask them like where their satisfaction is with the relationship, and either as a 1 to 5 scale, 1 to 10 scale, whatever.
Yeah.
So like you could, and then they could be like how upset, like how, what role does porn play, and like if both couples are saying that they're pro that, then it can, and then they can both say like, oh, they feel satisfied with their sexual, like they could say different things.
Yes.
But I think that like we can't take that as truth, because like you and I at the worst part of a relationship would still say like, oh no, things are okay. Like we wouldn't admit like how like the deep dysfunctions we could be having. And I think that's part of the problem with a debate like this, is that like no party's going to want to admit they're wrong. Right. And I think the best thing you could do is like you look at a tree and like what fruit is it bearing? Right.
Yes.
And I think the best way, like if you'd have to sit with a couple and really sit with them and understand where they're at and see like, is your relationship bearing fruit?
Yes. Because also I feel like so many people don't know what they don't know.
Mm-hmm.
So if they grew up in a family where like they either assumed that was a part of their parents' relationship, or like everybody that they know looks at porn, or like everyone they know, their husband looks at porn, or whatever the case may be, they just may feel like this is normal. This is the way it is. So it's fine because our relationship is just like everybody else's that we talk to, or, it might feel better than some of the other people. Well, at least we're not like them. So we're okay. And I think that, that deserves a deeper conversation and a deeper questioning of satisfaction and where you feel. And I think that your point is really good, that like, it's not just about like how you feel, but it's also about the fruit that your family is bearing and that your marriage is bearing. Because
I again, not any studies that they're referring to, maybe not. But there was I remember reading earlier when this is when Matt Fradd had like first opened up his website on pornography and stuff. People who shared that that felt guilt related to pornography almost always came from a Christian background. People who didn't grow up in a Christian background didn't see that there was anything wrong with it. So then then there was an argument of like, oh, it's because you're a Christian that you feel bad about it. But if you never had that framework, you would never feel bad about this. And therefore that doesn't mean that this is wrong. It means that your upbringing is too, it makes you feel too guilty. It's too rigid. So just, there's an interesting thing. Cause like as a debate goes on, you start seeing that like the two that are pro porn start arguing, well, like, well, this is just your faith. It's your religion that's making you feel this way, but there's nothing objectively bad to it. I have a hard time with that argument. So I don't know if you want to respond to anything before I start talking about that, because like
I think we should wait until it happens.
Oh, I don't know I don't know if it'll come up within the next 30 minutes. But like, I just know that's like, you could be in a relationship, like, so, and related to people that are listening and related to our listeners, but like, you could have a spouse who's like, I don't see anything wrong with this. So therefore there's nothing wrong with it. So like, I'm not dissatisfied with my sexual relationship because I have porn whenever I need it. And then my spouse whenever we're able to. And I don't see anything wrong with that. Like and then it seems like, well, if I want to enter a Catholic framework into you, all I'm doing is making you feel guilty. Instead of
ashamed,
right. And then we would see it as differently, because we see the Christian faith and the Catholic morality as this is what's going to give you true freedom.
Yep.
Right. But like, imagine trying to tell the people across the desk, like
that they can't do what they want. And that's really freedom.
Right. Yeah. Like I was watching, I get so much on reels and shorts. But there's this evangelical preacher who's up and coming. So I've been kind of following him. Keenan Clark is his name. And he was saying, it was really interesting. I thought this is an interesting point. Watch this be terrible. But he was saying that, that the way the devil tries to tempt you is that he gives you little bursts of life down the road to destruction. So like every time you're going down the road to destruction, like there's little bursts of things that just feels like it gives you life. It gives you life. And he's like, but the road to true life and to salvation and freedom to God is little deaths.
Yeah.
So like, you never feel like that's the way you want to go. Cause like you're constantly suffering. There's things you have to die to yourself and struggle. And the road to destruction just feels like, oh, there's so much more pleasure here. And I just thought, I was like, oh, that's such a good point.
Yeah.
So like, like imagine trying to convince them like, no, pornography is bad because, and like they could say like, no, everyone's saying that they feel fine with it. And then we still feel like, no, but that's still bad. Like that doesn't make sense. Like that doesn't.
I hope I'm not speaking out of turn, because this is really
probably are.
It doesn't make me want to say it now.
Sorry, no, just do it.
Because this is something like we've talked about, you and I.
Oh, you're going to talk about me.
Yes.
Great. Well, hey, YouTube.
Just about your addiction growing up, and like even into our dating relationship. And that like the freedom that you feel, though, it like you wouldn't have known that was possible, or that like what that would feel like when you're in the midst of addiction, right? And it feels satisfying in the moment, and then sometimes you felt guilty, and then sometimes you felt like, but really what you came to realize when you worked on your recovery from pornography was that it wasn't freedom, because you felt trapped by it. Like you felt a compulsion to it. I think she used that word too, that like you, that like you had an itch that you had to scratch. And for whatever reason that might be because you were feeling lust in the moment, or you're feeling turned on, or it could have also been, I'm feeling bored, I'm feeling lonely, I'm feeling stressed. And that's like a relief to that. But then eventually like coming around the other, like in the moment, you wouldn't have thought that was binding, but like coming around and being free from that, you now really understand why that word freedom is used.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's something actually, with the young men that that I still kind of walk with and try to help them with, the addiction, I've said to them, like, and it's funny because I remember being in their shoes and being like, there's no chance anyone is ever free from this.
Yeah.
And I remember believing, like, I was like, and I remember reading books from different speakers, even Soonville speakers, and them admitting like they were struggling. And I was like, there's no way, no one's actually free. I was convinced everyone just struggled and never talked about it. And then being on the other side of that, and then like, I have to remind them, like, no, like it's possible to be free.
Yeah.
It is 100% possible. and in that freedom, like you're finally able, and like we've said it in talks, like you're free to love as you want to love.
Yes.
And like, that's like it, and not saying that this is what the two people that what Jasmine and Destiny are saying, but like imagine trying to, like, you're polling drug addicts on their state of their life. Like, they're not going to admit, number one, that their things aren't going well. And if they recently know where they're going to get the next hit, like, oh yeah, like, no, things are great. I know, like, we
but
both
they also
are okay
feel
with
like
it.
that's the thing that's helping their life be okay.
Yeah, like everything's fine when this is happening. We're both happy with it. We consent to it. And I think Trent is going to point this out later. Like, just because you consent to a thing doesn't make it okay. And again, and like we would say from a full Christian perspective, because they're not on there, I think, they're not on there to debate and share the gospel. They're there just to debate a specific topic.
Yeah.
But like, we believe that the gospel is true freedom. And it doesn't mean that there's no work. It doesn't mean you don't carry your cross, but like, this is, and like, that's the kind of love that we want in a relationship, not just one that we can both consent to things, to whatever we want.
Yeah.
But like a love that's freeing and satisfying and sanctifying, and all in the same time.
Yeah. No strings attached. Like, there's not some other pull. It's just pure.
Yeah.
What it is. Yeah.
Let's see what Trent has to say.
If couples, the wife or the girlfriend doesn't mind.
That's really hard to tell. The majority of people I know, it's like that. Maybe the majority of people he knows, and the majority of people you know, it's the opposite. So I don't know. I do think in general, people don't see viewing pornography as like cheating.
Do you think
terrible.
the majority of people think that cheating is wrong, though, or even asking, can I have an open
cheating is wrong because
relationship?
it violates your boundaries? But if that's not violating your boundaries, which it's not for a lot of people, then it doesn't seem to be having these negative.
Do you think a majority of wives would think that it's wrong for a husband to even ask if he should be allowed to cheat?
That's not cheating. Is about violating boundaries. But if he asks, is it okay if I watch porn when we're not together? A lot of wives, girlfriends would say yes.
But do you think a lot of the wives and girlfriends saying yes are saying yes because they're really chill about it? It's not a big deal. We don't care. Or they're saying yes because society is telling them you should say yes.
What I was saying about the boundaries is it okay for a husband to ask, hey, can we renegotiate these boundaries?
Yeah, of course. It's okay. It's always
so there's nothing wrong with a husband saying, hey, because I think many people that would wives, girlfriends, lots who would say, no, that's wrong that you would even ask. That's just not okay to do. You don't ask for something like that.
Some people, and I think for some people, that's not the case. I don't know exactly.
And not to get too super philosophical, but like you can see that they're not
saying, they're not talking about the same thing.
Yeah, no. And it's because like a base philosophy of how we see things, like Jasmine and Destiny are more relativistic. Yeah. Right. So like it's relative. Like, we decide our own morality. We decide what's okay for us and within our relationship. And where Trent and Lila, because they're Catholic, like, that's just not how they see it. Like, they believe there's objective truth. There's objective morality. So, and the way Trent's kind of going about it, it seems like he's appealing to like, to that objective truth. And
she's not getting it.
She's not getting it. But also, I just think that's just not her worldview. Her worldview is not one that like there's a right or wrong. It's like, no, it's up to them. Yeah, it's up to them, and we can renegotiate whenever this is okay. And this is where like you can't say this in a debate, right? But I would say that in order to be able to live a life like that, we have to kill off a lot of what we naturally know is wrong in us. So like we and this is like, again, there'd have to be like, if we were in a discussion with someone that believed opposite us, like I don't think I'd go about it this way. I would not just say this to them, but like, and it would take over time and a lot of relationship and a lot of building trust and never accept a label in place of a story. But in order to believe a relativistic reality like that, like, you have to kill a lot of the things that you truly desire in your heart. So like the desire to be seen, known, and loved, and to love completely and unconditionally, you have to kill that in place, put a thing of like, well, this is good enough. And this is all I'm going to get. And this is all society really believes in and can offer me. And this other fairy tale type stuff like isn't real, right? There's no unconditional love. And this is what love looks like. This is the conditions love can give me. And I think that's the worldview that she's kind of holding. And so like, and in that worldview, she feels as though she's thriving because of, and the two of them, because of whatever things they set up around them, because they're even saying like, oh, well, the friends, the people I know. So like if you have people that think similar to you, then like, okay, things aren't that bad.
Right. I think too, this goes back, we've shared this before, but the difference between compromise and a shared vision that our friends kind of have turned, because I think so much of our society is trying to like, you should compromise so that you both get what you want, even if you disagree. And so that you can both be happy or both be satisfied. And maybe you don't like this thing, but you'll get something else that they might not like. And so we'll compromise. Like you can look at pornography and I can get, I don't know, like whatever else. And we've kind of like kept a balance in our relationship so that, and if you tip the scale too much, then, this isn't the right relationship for us. You need to go find somebody else that you fit better with, instead of coming up with this shared vision for your relationship and then working towards that and making decisions about, like what kind of behaviors align with that shared vision and how can we achieve that shared vision, and maybe we're struggling here. So like, how do we adjust, and things like that, but always not compromising, but like actually being on the same page and agreeing with one another and working towards that.
And I think
it's a big distinction.
Yeah. And I think it's worth bringing, because I think you could also be like, well, why are we even commenting on this? Because this is obviously secular versus Catholic. Like there's no Catholic couple who's listening to Pre-County with the Pope is going to be thinking that way. And I would push back on that, because I think what happens is similar to what she was saying about renegotiating boundaries that Trent was kind of pushing back on. You could have a husband or a wife who decides to say, not decides, but like they admit like, I struggle with blank. Or I want to try this new thing in our relationship. And then the other spouse feels pressure, like you said, of like, oh, they want to try this. This must be okay. I love my spouse. I love my husband. I love my wife. Like maybe we can. And whatever this new thing is, you can fill in the blank with whatever struggle you might have within your relationship. Because I know, and I guess this is again, and I've said this many times and you said not to say it too often, but like from Facebook threads and Facebook groups, like people share these things usually anonymously, but that husbands and wives bring up different sexual things that they either want to try or want to incorporate or have been exposed to. And they feel a need to compromise, and similar to a secular relationship, which is like, all right, let's renegotiate boundaries
or settle with, because they're afraid of the conflict or it's too difficult. Like they, in this case, like pornography, that like, I don't want to, but I feel like I need to settle in order for my husband to be happy, because I'm asking for NFP. So I'm asking for abstinence. So he deserves to have a release. Like, don't all guys need a release if they're not having sex? And so, there's this tension and this struggle. And I think a lot of people, when on one side or the other, but in the examples you're sharing, the wives are settling for something. And I think that goes back to your point that like deep down, they know that there's something wrong. And it's not necessarily because the Catholic Church said so, but it's because like my husband's attention is divided, or, there's some like urge that he feels like he has to address, and it's not with me, right. And like, how can I satisfy him if, we're abstaining right now because we don't want a baby? Like I must let him do that if what he's saying is true, And so there's a lot of wrestling internally and within a relationship. So I agree with you. I don't think that it's just like, right. It's a Catholic podcast and only Catholic people listen. Like it's also not true, because we have a lot of listeners that aren't necessarily Catholic, but even within the Catholic groups, it's definitely still an issue. So like, it's not just a secular couple type thing. And then also, but what I think could make, so it's just because you have this struggle doesn't mean that you're doomed. But I think what's important is that because we're Catholic, or because we're Catholic, and even Christians can lean in on this, but like we have, as Catholics, we believe we have the Church who gives us the law, gives us standards, right, of things we should obey. And if you feel like, and I think as Catholics say, we have this secular type issue come into our relationship, and I suddenly
say that I have these desires that like I don't know what to do with. I should be able to look at what the Catholic Church teaches and see that as like, all right, that's the challenge that I have to be able to live up to, and not see that as like a restriction of my freedom, but more of like a definitive calling that I have. Like I have to live up to this. So like, regardless of how I might feel, my role as a husband and father demands certain things of me. Right. And if I'm going to live that out as a Catholic man, like there's certain demands on my life that are being made. And I think that's uncomfortable. And as it should be. Like I don't see how a secular couple like the one that they're describing that can renegotiate boundaries can, like, I don't know how do they do hard things? Because like if I renegotiate a boundary every time I have a new desire that pops up, like that doesn't seem like I will ever be challenged. Whereas like I think human flourishing comes in when you start doing difficult things and realizing like I can do good.
You're capable.
I'm capable of this. And we would believe that it's by God's grace that we're capable of doing it, but we don't even begin to strive for it until we see a higher calling. And then that's what the law would be. Like we're met with, like, I admit these desires and you're like, no, that's not okay. The church is saying it's not okay.
Right.
And then the Christ is saying with me, you can get to this level. And like, there's no chance I could do this. Like I could be back to my 17-year-old self being like, there's no chance I could ever be free.
Right.
And there's a lot of men who genuinely feel like there's no way I could ever give this up. My wife expecting way too much of me. The church expecting way too much of me. But that's not true.
And it's like, no, we believe that much in you.
Right.
Right. And I think too, there's like an element of distrust when it comes to that too. When you have to be very careful. It's a really important gut check that you're like, I trust and I believe in this, this, and this, but like the pill, contraception, pornography, sterilization, like things like that, like things that come into like the sexual realm. A lot of people will believe in Christianity and the gospel and all that stuff until it gets to that like intimate and personal part. And it's like, you have to do a gut check, because if you trust in all that other stuff, why aren't you trusting here? And I think a piece of it is this own, you talked about it in your book about Saint Joseph, like this a little bit of like doubt seeps into your head that like you're worthy of this calling and that you're capable, right? Like Saint Joseph, you talked about like Saint Joseph divorcing Mary. Some theologians consider that maybe it was because he didn't feel capable. Saint Jerome.
So there's two. Let me explain. Do you want to explain it? You explain it. Sorry, you can explain it. I got excited.
I just want to like summarize it quickly, so I'll say it. So you can read the book, buy it on Amazon. But basically that like one Saint Jerome's idea is that Saint Joseph decided to divorce Mary quietly was partially because he didn't feel like he was up for the call of fathering the Savior until the angel came to him and spoke to him in a dream, and then he took her into his home. So I think part of that is either a distrust in the fullness and truth of our faith. Like you can't say that you trust one thing and then like cherry pick the thing because it's too hard, or because you don't feel like you're capable, because you don't feel worthy. And I just think that it's really important to like to check the fruit of your trust in other areas. Like if you have trusted the Lord with your finances, or if you've trusted the Lord with your relationships, if you've trusted the Lord in like you've entered into a sacrament and you believe that that was a good, then why don't you believe that this is a good and for your good, right? So I think that it's really also important to do that.
I also think that we don't appreciate, and this is like a big we, royal we don't appreciate how wounded how wounded we are due to how much pornography has been consumed by the people around us.
Yeah.
From, I don't know, however long, this is 2023. I don't remember when the internet became a thing. Windows 98, I think that's when I started windowing. But I'm sure I knew there's Windows before that. Then Windows 2000 came out, then XP. I saw a thing on YouTube, like they went through all of them.
Keep going.
But my point being that we assume a lot of things are normal that aren't normal, but because they're normalized now. So this is for the next reflection video we're going to do. But there's this belief that like men need sex and they desire sex more than women. And it's true to an extent biologically, but I think it's been vastly overemphasized and what's another word?
Overused.
Not just overused. Like it's true, but the only reason it's as the gap is as big as it is because of pornography, right? Like, so like there is a natural gap already between men and women biologically, but like it's gotten so bad because of porn. And then we just assume like, oh, that's just the way it is. Like men just like, oh, men need a release. Like we say that now, but like I would highly doubt that men 100 years ago would feel the same exact way. Like I'm not saying they wouldn't feel like they needed a release. I'm not trying to say that, like, but I am saying that like they didn't have the amount of images and videos and movies and not just like things that you see on your phone, but like just all the different images that we've seen up to this point in our lives. Like a lot of things have skewed us to a point, and we're at a place that we need such deep healing that we don't even realize we need it. Yeah. And like that deep integrated healing needs to happen. We think it's just like, I just need to kick an addiction, or I just need to get over this thing that happened to me. But like, no, there's a lot more that needs to be healed.
Right. Well, I mean, you even think about like our dad's generation of pornography was like looking at a magazine and you hid it, and it was very like secretive. And now it's very like, let's talk about it. Let's normalize it. Like it's fine. And everybody's doing it and stuff. So I think that you have to be very aware of those differing messages. And even just like, okay, so yeah, like what kind of damage was done by, you know, our dads and their version of pornography. And then like what kind of damage has happened to us because of our different access to it.
But like, so this is a good way to illustrate my point. It's more of like, so the point I'm trying to make is that there's things that we have seen in our past that weren't normal and weren't okay, but we don't realize that. And because of that, we're not going back to heal from it. For example, Home Alone 1. Okay. There's a split second where he's looking at Playboy and he says, no clothes on anybody, disgusting, and he throws a magazine. And our kids still have not picked up on that, so they're still allowed to watch it. But as soon as they do, I'm like, all right, you're not watching this anymore.
All done.
But like that was snuck in there, and I don't remember it as a kid, right? For example, so like one of the things I don't remember as a kid, but like that should not have been in a kid's movie. Okay. And I guess like that's kind of my point. Like there's things that were snuck in throughout, and this is not just our lives, but people older than us that were snuck in that shouldn't have been snuck in, and it's been seen as normal or funny or whatever. Like in Home Alone 3, the older brother has like a fully nude poster on and it's covered by Post-its or whatever. And like when he's doing the traps or whatever, he has to take the Post-it off, and like it's a joke, and like, but the kid is like 7 years old and he's doing that, and it's seen as like normal and funny, but like those things should not have been happening. But because of the way how much pornography seeped into the culture, like it's seen as normal, and like I think
and
funny and like, so you shouldn't and boys like this, or like National Lampoons, like that was on when we were watching we weren't watching our house, at somebody else's house when we went over for Christmas, and I was ready. There's two scenes that I was like, I don't want my kids to see this. You don't even know what I'm talking about, and I was ready to turn it off when it came up because like, but like. When I remember seeing that at their age, and like it was normal, it was funny, and I remember my dad making fun of me for how I reacted because I got all sweaty because the woman's starting to take her clothes off on the screen, and I'm like, my parents are in the room, or like watching Titanic with your parents. That's traumatizing. But like but things like that, like there's things that are in the culture that we see are normal, and like, no, you actually need to be healed from that, and we don't see that. And that's why, like, to speak to people who believe differently like this, and like, oh, you can renegotiate boundaries, like there's such deep healing that needs to happen to untangle those webs, to show them like this should not have happened to you. And I remember one thing Matt Fradd said once on stage at Steubenville Conference 2017 when we took teens over there. That was 2017. And he said that like if he believes that if God was able to go back to the moment that you were first exposed to porn, or I think any images like that, he would scoop you up and hold you and look you in the eyes and say, I'm so sorry this happened to you, because like that shouldn't have happened to us. And for so many men and women that are even on YouTube watching this, like they were exposed way too early, and not just porn, like any of these images, like way too early. Cause like as soon as that happens, like you start thinking about the world differently. Like I know as a 7-year-old boy, as I'm watching National Lampoons, like I saw that happen. Like suddenly I'm looking at women differently. Like that just changed. Like I didn't even know that was possible. Now suddenly like that everybody becomes an object. And I wasn't consciously thinking that, but like that's when it happened.
Right. Wow. That's amazing to think of. Cause I've even thought of that with our son, who's 9 going on 10, right? And I've commented to you a few times now, he does jujitsu, and I love that he's able to roll with girls, and it's not weird for him because he doesn't think that way about girls yet. But like, I wonder if he had been exposed. He wouldn't be trying to choke them. Right. Or like,
he doesn't
just
care.
like touch, their whole body. Like that's what happens in jujitsu. Like you're just rolling around.
Nope.
And so,
now he's just trying to choke them.
Yes. So it's, that's, I hadn't even like thought of it that way. And I wonder too, because like to me, cause I'm amazed because I would be weirded out by rolling with a boy at that age. Like I would know that that's like weird. And from what, I have no idea what that first, that first moment of we're different and we don't look or touch at those things because they're spicy. I don't know.
You say spicy.
I don't know.
It's because I'm Hispanic. No, but like, so I don't know what those things are. I don't even know where this episode is going now.
This is not the plan we had.
No, but I do think that because this is the New Year's, I do think one resolution for people, if they are doing resolutions, if you don't want to, because that's not what you want to do this year, I totally support that. But like, I think considering like where you need healing in this area, and then if you are struggling with porn, taking that struggle more seriously and trying to be free of it.
I hope that this is like inspiring to believe that freedom is possible. I don't know. Maybe if that's the only thing that we can share.
You did your hair.
I put my hair up because it was,
disappointing.
That was a while ago. I don't know. I just hope that this kind of identifies that like that feeling that you feel deep down that there's something off about this, or that I desire freedom from this. This isn't what I want. I want you to know that like you are capable through grace, to find freedom in that. And that, that like to consider also how it affects your relationship with your spouse or your future spouse or your fiance or what have you, to I challenge you to like have those difficult conversations and like ask, like where do you think, because like are we compromising or are we working towards a shared vision?
So I'm gonna link to a couple things. I'm gonna link to the full debate.
We didn't go back to it for a long time.
I'm clicking out. We're not going to go back to it. So I'm going to link to the full debate. I'm also going to link to Strive 21, which is one of Matt Fradd's free, 21-day porn detox programs. And I'll link to a couple other things for people who want more help with breaking free of pornography. But yeah, so that's all I have.
All right.
So I hope that this. So you go. No, I'm going to stop. Look at my broken headphone.
Yep. This is where support us on Patreon so we can buy a new headset. I don't know. I'm so glad that you're here in this new year.
They're talking about me. So me too.
I'm really glad you're here. If you're at Seek, come try to find us. We'll be around. But we're so happy that you're here, listening to us and supporting us and getting excited about these conversations. I hope that this sparks good conversations for you guys at home. And
sorry, not sorry if they're uncomfortable conversations.
Yeah.
They need to happen.
Yeah. But I just really hope that this new year is like a wonderful adventure for you. I'm excited. I guess we're YouTubing now, so we're trying new things.
Watch us not even get up, and we said this on the podcast. That's sort of my life. You have
to post at least this one. Maybe a second one might not come up because I'm really angry that this happened. We'll talk about it later. This is not a shared vision.
I didn't put no product in my hair. You can't tell though, because my hair's black.
This is a compromise right here.
We shared this vision.
This is all Felipe's fault. So if he listened to the whole episode, I blame you. And you need to give Renzo a geek because he didn't send your coffee reel. Okay, there it is. We'll see you at the next episode.